Hey guys, we made a video recently talking about how Japanese people reacted to the power shortages that have resulted from the Tohoku disaster, about how patient they were and about how they haven't complained. And we've had other videos in the past sort of along similar topics too, about not complaining in Japan and trying harder and that sort of thing. And it actually goes one step further than that. And if you listen to this topic or consider this topic, you'll probably find that it connects in with a lot of other aspects of Japanese life as well. Again, it's a lot of generalizations. It doesn't refer to everybody, because of course Japanese people aren't all the same as other nationalities. There's a lot of different people, but generalizations, as always with these sort of topics, it's generalizations. So this one's talking about hardship and suffering. And in Japan, in Japanese culture, hardship and suffering are sort of considered to be a good thing. And that if you lead a life of hardship and suffering, that's a good thing. It's not something you complain about, it's a good thing. And that if you try and have a life that has no hardship and suffering, it's all easy, it's a bad thing. Or even if you try and have some easiness to your life, it's a bad thing. So I'll just give you some examples. One example is in the language, and you'll hear it in the language all the time. It's all about how hard everything is and how busy. It's not complaining, it's just saying it. So one example is, there's a lot of examples, but one is in formal speeches. Formal speeches often start with Minasama honjitsu wa oisugashii naka. And what they're saying is, today, even though you're very busy, and then they go on and thank you for coming. So basically what they're saying is, even though your life is very busy, that you've still come to this event. Now, it might be in the middle of the summer holidays on a Sunday, you know, but they'll still say it. Or if it's really hot, they'll say, you know, even though it's really hot, you still came to this event. And there's always this, almost always, in those formal speeches to start, is almost always saying that even though life is really difficult, or even though you have some sort of hardship, you've still come to this event. And that's the way it often starts. And then the final speech that they make when everybody is about to leave, they say the same thing, you know, even though it was really difficult, you were here, you know. And it's a really popular theme, you know, it's a really popular thing. Another one, you can see it in the literature, and you can see it on TV and in movies in Japan. In a lot of other cultures, you know, we love the happy ending, don't we? You know, if the characters go through some difficulty or hardship, we like it at the end if it all works out happily for them and that, you know, it's all good. But in Japanese literature and movies and TV, often it has a sad ending, you know, sort of the tragic ending. So, you know, she wants to be with him, he wants to be with her, they try really hard, the parents won't let them, the families won't let them, and then at the end they kill themselves. Quite common. I saw on TV recently where at the end, you know, the girl's killed him and then she's killed herself. Really common. And sadness, you know, and suffering. And, you know, there's a series on TV where they get 4-year-old kids and give them missions. So the mother says to them, this is true, it's like a documentary, what do they call it, reality TV. And the mothers will say to the kids, say to the 4-year-old, you know, here's some money, go to the shop and buy some milk. And the 4-year-old's never done it on their own. And they go, no, I don't want to. And the mother says, no, you must try. You must try hard. Here's the money, go to the shop, buy the milk. I don't want to, you know. And the kids will be crying and saying, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And the mother's saying, you must, you must. And what they've done is they've hidden film crews all the way from the house to the shop. So the kid's not really in any real danger, but the kid doesn't know that, you know, and the mothers sort of force them to go to the shop and buy the milk. And sometimes the kids go with it and they sort of skip off down the street and skip back again and it's all good. But usually, and this is what the producers of these shows are trying to get, usually the kids are screaming their heads off and scared to death and really traumatized. And they'll go all the way to the shop and all the way back, and they're traumatized the whole time and they're crying the whole time, and they come back and, oh, isn't that great? And then they go back to the studio, and all these talent, all these people in the studio are all sitting there crying, and oh, wasn't that amazing? And they love it. They absolutely love it, because the kid had great trauma, but, you know, kept trying and managed to achieve the result. And wasn't that wonderful? And they're all in tears, and oh, that was wonderful, you know. And so basically, I mean, admittedly, you know, when people go to the dojo, we learn that sports people and people who study hard, and you know, that in life suffering often brings good results. That's a commonly accepted thing, isn't it? That, you know, you have to endure something, and you have to suffer through something to improve yourself. You know, Japanese talk all the time about gaman suru, you know, and it means endure. It can also mean to be patient, but the way they use it usually is used like to endure something, you know, is good for you. And I think a lot of people accept that is true, but these guys go over the top. I mean, to me, sending a 4-year-old through a trauma like that for the entertainment of adults, you know, some people would feel, if you could see this TV program, I can't handle watching it, because to me it feels like child abuse. That they're putting this kid through an unnecessary trauma that's not doing any benefit for the kid. They're not doing it for the kid's benefit, they're doing it for the TV show. So it's for adults' entertainment, you know, and everybody sees it as perfectly normal, perfectly healthy. And this is one thing that foreigners that live here often say too. If they've lived here for a period of time and got close to Japanese people, or spent a lot of time with Japanese people, they often say they feel often as if Japanese people are lacking in compassion. And that can often feel like that, is that you know, that going through discomfort or pain or suffering or hardship is considered a good thing, and nobody complains about it. And also, to go further, they don't really show any compassion for people who are going through it. It's sort of a bit disturbing sometimes that someone can go through a lot of discomfort and hardship, and the other people here go, oh yeah, well, that's you know, next. What else you got? You know, example of this is doctors and dentists. I think in most cultures now, you know, a doctor and a dentist are judged by how comfortable their patients are. You know, that if you go to a dentist and you don't have any pain or any discomfort, that dentist is a good dentist. You know, and I think that, you know, it's sort of, we put that in a lot of cultures, we put that onto the dentist and the doctor, that it's their responsibility to make sure that we don't have any pain or discomfort, you know. Whereas in Japan, it's on the patient. So if you go to the dentist or the doctor, of course you're going to have some pain and discomfort. Of course. You know, and they use the minimum amount of anaesthetic. You've seen this on our healthcare playlist. You know, they'll use a minimum amount of anaesthetic or no anaesthetic at all, quite often, and you just have to endure it, because, you know, that's normal. If you go to the dentist and you have pain, of course, you know, and nobody complains and says, you know, please give me some anaesthetic. And this is the other thing, is that not only can you not complain, but you can't look for the easier way. It's considered to be cop-out. It's considered to be a weak character. If you start to look for, you know, I'll give you an example. I was with a group of people one day, and we had to move a mountain of sand from one place to another. And their way of doing it, they have to do it every year. It's for a kudo thing. They have to put all this sand in a certain place every year. They have to renew it. And this place had some stairs, and beside the stairs was a little concrete path, and in a neighbouring building was a wheelbarrow. But these guys were shoveling the sand into bags and then carrying the bags down these stairs to this other place. And it was quite obvious that if we used the wheelbarrow, it would have been a lot easier and a lot quicker, and, you know, not as hard work, you know, carrying these bags of sand. And I knew not to say anything loudly, so I quietly said to another guy, you know, that building has a wheelbarrow, and we have this little concrete path here, you know, could we use the wheelbarrow? And he said, oh, you know, because he knew that suggesting that wouldn't be welcome, because they always use the bags, that's the way they do it, and he didn't want to be the one to suggest an easier way, because it looks like you're copping out, you know. And it's the same thing in the workplace, you know. It's quite, everybody knows that Japanese people work really, really long hours, you know. And it's the same in the workplace. You know, you listen to people who work for Japanese companies, and quite often, you know, they'll work till 12 o'clock at night doing something, and you say, is that an important thing to do for the company? And they say, no, not really. It's a bit of a waste of time. You know, and so here's this group of people, and they all have to do it. You know, you can't, if you're with a group of people and they're working till midnight, you can't go home early. You know, you have to stay there till the end like everybody else. And there's this group of people doing this task that they all know is a waste of time. But if one of them says, oh, this is a waste of time, let's just go home, it's like, whoa, he's copping out. He's got a weak character, he's avoiding the hardship, he's avoiding the work, you know? And this is this is just, you know, anybody who spent any time in Japan will possibly recognize different situations and think, wow, that's true. You know, that it fits in with this way of thinking, is that hardship and suffering, and look, to a certain extent or at certain times, this way of thinking is really useful. So for example, after the Tohoku disaster, you know, a lot of people from around the world commented that Japanese people went, you know, boom, wow, that was terrible. Okay, what can we do? And they all just put their heads down and worked hard and did what needed to be done, and they don't, you know, don't complain, they just go for it. And sometimes, of course, that way of thinking is excellent. You know, I mean, you go to a Japanese dojo and it's 42 degrees and everybody's training their hearts out in big heavy dogi and, you know, really going hard, and you can see, I mean, you often see, you know, these guys, their spirit is amazing, but it can make it difficult. And I think that this, again, you know, people often bring up the suicide rate in Japan, and I don't really don't like talking about that. We've covered it in the video already, the suicide thing, but again, this fits in with that, doesn't it? Is that people get pushed, suffering and hardship, suffering and hardship, suffering and hardship, until this level is probably reasonable, but they get pushed further and further and further. They can't complain, and if they are suffering and they're really having a hard time and they're right on the edge, people tell them, try harder, try harder, try harder. And quite often, you know, to a reasonable level of suffering and hardship, that's acceptable. But the problem is people get right to the edge, where they can't take anymore, and everybody around them says, try harder. Nobody says, relax. You know, in a lot of cultures, if you get overly stressed and you've got too much pressure in your life and you're working too hard, and people around you, your friends and your family and people who care about you will say, hey, take it easy, you know, take it easy, take a couple of days off. Your boss might say it to you. Say, hey, look, you're working too hard, you know, you're hurting yourself, take it easy and take a couple of days off. You know, your boss might say it, or your husband or your wife or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your parents or your brothers or sisters or your neighbour. You know, somebody will say to you, hey, look, take it easy, you know, relax a bit, you're going too hard, you're too stressed. Here, it's very unlikely anybody would say that. It's more likely they're going to say, try harder, gembaru. That's what they're going to say, gembaru, gembaru. And you hear gambare, gambare, you hear it all the time. Gambate kudasai, you know, which when you're here, when people are here, that's okay, but the problem is people get to the limit where they can't take any more, and everybody around them's just saying, try harder, try harder, try harder. So, suffering and hardship, you know, more suffering and hardship for everybody. So, the reason I made this video is, I think it helps, if we keep this in mind, it helps understand some of the other aspects, like not complaining and some other aspects. Why, you know, people often say on my videos, why don't they do it differently? If I was there, I'd tell them that they should do it differently and that sort of stuff. If you try and tell somebody they should be doing it differently, it's going to look like you're copping out. You're trying to find an easy way out. It's another reason. It's another reason why it's best not to say anything, you know, not to be a know-all and say anything. It's just best just to let it go, because this is another aspect of the society that we don't necessarily understand, you know. So one reason is to help understand the other aspects of it, and the other one is a sort of bit of a warning for people that are coming here, you know, because if you live here and amongst this is what it's like. You know, if you live in a part of Japan where you're surrounded, your life is, you know, you've slipped yourself in amongst everybody else, this is what you're going to be living with, this is what it's going to be like, you know. So usually, again, big generalizations, but it's usually the case. So anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and I hope that you'll see examples of this in other aspects or other videos or other aspects of life in Japan if you come and spend some time here. So yes, hope you found that interesting. More videos coming soon.